Ready for a little recognition?
AMSN is proud to support its members and celebrate their incredible contributions to advancing the nursing profession and improving healthcare.
Through scholarships, awards, and grants, AMSN recognizes leadership, excellence, and innovation within the nursing community.
Take the next step in your career and be acknowledged for the impactful work that you do.
Explore AMSN's awards, grants, and scholarship opportunities by visiting amsn.org/awards-grants. On this episode of Med-Surg Moments,
my mom actually is a nurse. It was probably the one thing I never would want to do. It's still one of the craziest things I've ever done, but there's nothing else I'd rather do.
given your vast insight into this generation of nursing students, what can we learn from them?
I think the biggest things that we have to learn from this generation when it comes to nursing, the Med-Surg nurses are the ones that give the care that people remember, and they're the ones that impact that patient in the long term. I think that's where a lot of our teaching falls. If you were to want students to take away one message about why they should consider Med-Surg nursing, what would that be? By designating Med-Surg as a specialty to our students, we're feeding into that. Med-Surg, it's just as sought after as critical care and ED, even though it's not seen as frequently in that light.
This is Mary Tess,
Sam,
Eric,
Marcella,
Kellye,
and Sydney. Welcome to Med-Surg Moments, the AMSN podcast.
This podcast is an engaging look at the lives of and surrounding medical surgical nurses.
We're proud Med-Surg nurses just like you, sharing our stories, insights, and experiences to support you in your nursing journey.
Once upon a time, not so long ago, we were all nursing students.
Nursing students today are stepping into an evolving healthcare landscape, facing challenges like staffing shortages, clinical education gaps, and the need for stronger advocacy and nursing policy.
From fresh perspectives on patient care to the drive for systemic change, today's nursing students are helping shape the future of the profession in ways that impact us all. In this episode, we explore the issues most important to nursing students and nursing education through the voice of nursing students.
Joining us today is Ethan Slocum, the 73rd president of the National Student Nurses Association, representing over 50,000 nursing students nationwide.
A fourth-year nursing student at Case Western Reserve University, Ethan is set to graduate in May 2025 and plans to specialize in pediatric critical care.
Since taking office in April 2024, he has spoken at influential forums, including the American Nurses Association and the White House Council on Environmental Quality, advocating for transformative changes in nursing and healthcare. His leadership is shaping a more equitable and progressive future for nursing students across the U.S. Ethan, welcome to Med-Surg Moments.
Hi, thank you so much for having me and for that very impressive sounding introduction.
Before we get started, our listeners would love to hear more about you.
I'm from Traverse City, Michigan, although I was born a Buckeye, and that's part of how I made my way back to Cleveland for school. My mom actually is a nurse. It was probably the one thing I never would want to do. Having those dinner table conversations about C. diff and all of those things that shouldn't be at the dinner table, that scared me away. But as I made my way through high school and determined that I could not do physics, engineering was off the table, I made my way back to wanting to do something in healthcare. All of those influences and those horror stories made me kind of immune to anything that I would face in my path. I thought, why not try it? It's still one of the craziest things I've ever done, but there's nothing else I'd rather do. Walking into patient rooms and being able to have those interactions, having people let you into their lives, it's just such a special thing to be able to do.
It's funny that you just say that your mom scared you a little bit, because I worry that I scare my teenage daughter. I try to sell it to her and then I come home with some horror stories.
It's a hard sell these days, but I'm still really happy with it.
I love this story because as much as we wanted to be super honest with our kids, My husband and I are both nurses. And so the kids are always like, can we not talk about that? We're eating. But thank you for choosing nursing. And so I wanted to really ask this question. Given your vast insight into this generation of nursing students, what is their perspective toward their future as nurses, and what can we learn from them?
I would say their perspective into the future of nursing is we don't know what it's going to look like either. We're coming into a workforce that we've never seen before COVID. We are coming in with that trauma response built in already and ready to be thrown into whatever situation we're going to make our way into. But one of the biggest things that I think this generation of nurses coming in has going for them is we say what's on our minds, whether the people around us like it or not. We're not afraid to call out when things aren't happening the right way. And that scares a lot of older nurses. It scares a lot of my professors as well, because we don't like putting up with a lot of the systemic injustice that happens within the healthcare system and within nursing in particular. We don't put up with lateral workplace violence. We don't put up with a lot of these things that have kind of become inherent in the whole nurses eat their young mindset. I think the biggest things that we have to learn from this generation when it comes to nursing is that we are coming in with the newest and most relevant evidence-based practice. So while a lot of nurses like to think that these nursing students are coming in and they don't know anything, when it comes to the actual didactic, we're coming in with the newest best practice to best support our patients. And I think that's a hard learning curve sometimes when preceptors are coming in thinking they're the ones to be taught. It's kind of a reciprocal relationship compared to what I think a lot of nurses expect new grads to come in looking like. And it's a very different relationship than I think it has been over time. So it's really nice to have that back and forth and be able to teach each other as a profession and not solely phase out in knowledge. It's kind of part of the lifelong learning that nursing needs to survive.
I do like what you mentioned about not afraid to speak up, not afraid to change what is already out there. And I think that's so very interesting with the fact that professional identity in nursing is kind of like a blur at this time, especially with what happened during COVID. This generation needs to really learn how to speak up, because I'm learning from you guys. So thank you for sharing that. That's very interesting.
I wanted to piggyback, Ethan, what you said about this new generation of nurses not putting up and tolerating the lateral violence. I had to talk to one of my senior nurses about that because she was offended when the nursing student pulled her aside, away from the patient, away from staff, and told her about her feelings and what she really felt. So that was something that in real time I had to talk to her about it because she was offended. And the new nurse was not trying to offend her by any means. She just wanted to talk to her.
Exactly. I think with as many clinical hours as we're required to do coming in today, we have experience working with all kinds of nurses who want us around and nurses who don't want us around. And it's very apparent when those situations happen, but it also helps us learn how to effectively and respectfully communicate our feelings and make sure we're standing up for ourselves when it's necessary.
How do today's nursing students view the specialty of Med-Surg nursing?
Med-Surg, I think, gets a bad rap in the minds of students. I honestly blame nursing school for that, though. I don't blame the specialty. I think it's because we create coursework and curriculum that centers on every single problem medically that you could ever have. And then we squeeze it into the course of 1 to 2 semesters and say, okay, you're going to learn all of these things and you're going to know how to use them and implement them. And you're also going to be doing clinical and lab. It's a lot of things to throw at someone at once. We're traumatized by nursing school and then it scares people away from it. On top of that, you're adding the college experience. But some of my most insightful and most meaningful clinical experiences have been in Med-Surg settings. I was on a spinal cord injury unit at one of the VA hospitals in Cleveland, and it gave me an entirely new insight into the patient-nurse dynamic. Obviously, the VA functions a little differently than a lot of healthcare systems, but the dynamic they had in being able to work so intimately and closely with those patients, because they do rely on them so heavily and do have these long-term medical issues, the difference that those nurses are able to make. Everyone likes to say that critical care is exciting and that emergency room nursing is exciting. Mm-hmm. You see the patient for like this very short window of time. Most of the time, they're not super conscious. They're not going to probably remember you. And The Med-Surg nurses are the ones that give the care that people remember, and they're the ones that really impact that patient in the long term. I think that's where a lot of our teaching falls to. I think it's where all roads meet in nursing. It's a place you go where you really want to have those meaningful connections with patients, where you want to be able to educate them, and where you want to be able to work with patients with all different types of pathophysiology happening.
Ethan, are you sure you haven't been working at the bedside for 10 years already? Now I know why you're the president of the association.
I like to joke that I have worked a second clinical rotation is what I like to call it. Starting my freshman year, I worked on a trauma step-down unit at one of our local hospitals. It was a level 1 trauma center. That's where I would say I got my most med-surg experience, got my hands really dirty. The staffing ratios were really rough in that window of time. So I would have 16 patients that I'd be taking care of at once. So that definitely gave me some hard and fast experience. And then I've worked in a cardiac ICU, did that for a year and a half, a pre and post cath lab unit, inpatient, and very med-surg based as well. And then I currently work in a pediatric intensive care unit. So bedside, I've really fitted in the past 4 years alongside my clinical, and I'm very lucky because I think it makes me feel a lot more prepared going into the profession as well.
I have to say, I'm not surprised that the perception of med-surg, I feel like, is the same as when I was in nursing school about 10 years ago now at this point. But I hope that through platforms like this, through AMSN, through the Student Nurses Association, that we're able to share how much great experience and learning and growth that there can be in med-surg units. So
if you were to want students to take away one message about why they should consider med-surg nursing, what would that be? What is the appeal that drew you in?
I found a patient population that I really loved. Going through nursing school, I liked the ED, I liked the ICU, I liked med-surg, I liked postpartum. Back then, the jobs were pretty, I don't want to say scarce, but it wasn't super easy to get a nursing job, especially somewhere in these more high sought after specialties. And so my senior practicum I did on an ortho neuro unit, absolutely loved it. I thought there was enough challenge, especially with the neuro side. There was a lot to learn there. It was super busy with total joint patients, so hips and knees mostly. And so I liked kind of having some of that routine, knowing all these patients are going to come out with the same order sets. I know what to expect. And I felt a little bit of comfort in that, in a little bit of routine. And so when I found this patient population I really loved, I felt like that was going to be my home. And I ended up working there for about 4 years before I moved into this nursing professional development role. And I'm just forever so thankful for all those experiences and all of the teammates that I made, the relationships that I built with other nurses, providers, therapies, all these different people. And those have been instrumental in my success in my professional development role as well, because I had these friends who then went off to different units, and then I could still go talk to them there, find out what I needed to know from them. And that was my experience.
My favorite word that I connect with med-surg is flexibility in every single season of life. I'm a flow pool nurse, so I can show up at any hospital on any unit. And if it's anything in the middle of med-surg, that's a big category, but you can just jump in and do everything you've learned. Obviously, in a new hospital, you're going to have to learn some of the things there, but you can get right in there and start your shift and be the best nurse for that patient in any season of life.
I wanted to chime in as well. You're able to utilize all of your clinical skills on one specific unit. So it goes to a lot of nurses who don't know what they would like to specialize in, whether it's the ER, the ICU, OB, and peds. For me specifically, I knew all the areas I was not interested in. I knew OB and peds was not my jam, critical care, ER. So for me, for med-surg, I'm able to utilize seeing different types of patients and using my clinical skills. You never have a dull day in med-surg.
And for me, I wanted to say communication and teamwork. In med-surg, you really get to hone that effective communication and also teamwork, because you deal with a lot. Not that you don't do that in ED, ICU, and OR. I mentioned this before. I work in the OR and they told me, stop talking. I'm like, why? I'm a nurse. I like to chat. I like to talk. Med-surg is where you actually do a lot of connection with family, connection with patients. You'll find your niche, developing those effective communication skills and teamwork. Med-surg is a specialty. This is a specialty. You have to think of it as it's not just a stepping stone. It is something that you can stay forever. I've seen nurses, Med-Surg nurses, they've been there for 30 years or more, and they love it.
Did we answer your question? Do you think people will be inspired now to join Med-Surg?
I hope so. I think students just need to be more open when they're entering the profession. I think so often people go through their clinical rotations looking for the perfect fit. And I don't think that exists. I think there's a lot of places that students would fit in well. And I think people are very quick to write off Med-Surg because they're like, oh, it's Med-Surg. And I think we kind of need to lift that up more into the future. It ties into the whole viewing nursing as a profession, focusing on professional development. And by designating Med-Surg as a specialty to our students, we're feeding into that. Med-Surg, it's just as sought after as critical care and ED, even though it's not seen as frequently in that light.
Regarding nursing students' Med-Surg clinical education experience, what do you think we are doing well, and where do we have opportunities to better prepare them for their nursing future?
I obviously am here to speak for all students across the country. Large shoes to fill, but in my own personal experience, I was very lucky to attend a school where I started clinicals my first semester of my first year on medical surgical units. We were there mainly to fulfill duties that PCAs would do on a lot of units. So we were there to take vitals. We were there to do bed baths, to help patients to the bathroom. Kind of some more of the basic things, but I think having that foundation and kind of using Med-Surg to solidify a basis in nursing skills, I think is something we could work towards and do better. Having that experience and being thrown into those situations as a first-year nursing student, 18 years old, not really being in the social headspace of a nurse yet, I think taking advantage of Med-Surg is the opportunity to have patients that aren't sedated, that aren't intubated, that are conscious, that are relatively healthy enough in the sense that they're verbal most of the time. And you have the opportunity to have those conversations, get to know your patients, get to hone in on your interview skills. And I think that's something we can really capitalize on. I think when it comes to clinical education specifically, I think Med-Surg nurses are already overwhelmed with staffing like we have it today. I'm located in Cleveland, Ohio, where we have 5 major hospital systems. 2/3 of them are teaching hospitals. So nurses on medical surgical units are constantly being thrown nursing students from all different programs, and they are almost burnt out of teaching, even though they're not there to be teachers, they're there to do their jobs. By working in these institutions, they're being put in positions where they need to teach these students how to do their jobs. I think it's kind of an unfair expectation, and I think it also does create a bad taste in nurses' mouths towards students because they come in not knowing very much, expecting kind of be shown the ropes. And when you're doing that day after day, I think it's just a lot to expect. So I think we kind of need to formalize in medical surgical settings who is going to be a good preceptor and not just expect people day of to show up and say, here's a student.
Even looking back at when I was on clinicals as a student versus working now as a nurse, the clinical experience looked completely different. Like I had foggy goggles or something because it wasn't anything like real life, even though you're right there in a real hospital. I think part of that is that I was walking around with my care plan packets, worried about how to fill in all the blank spaces and not really diving into the real life situation I was in, the dire situations, what I could do to be helpful. I was so worried about the care plans, which are not really what you're doing on a shift.
Oh yeah, we are 100% still there, unfortunately, walking around with our 10 to 15 page packet, pencil and paper, just walking around. Patient A, no to 1. You walk in the room, you're running down a list of questions, and you're probably not getting any correct answers because you're not looking at them. You're looking at your paper. They're confused. You're confused. It's just a bad situation for everyone. And you're not going to do that when you get in the clinical setting. So I'm a big advocate for no more care plans. I understand the purpose, but I think there's a much better way to do it than the way that nursing education seems to want to keep pushing. And I think that's a sentiment that a lot of our student members share.
Ethan, I propose an app because I am a proponent of nursing care plans. So we'll make it digital. But that's really what I like about this generation of student nurses is that you're really not afraid to speak. I do recall one student nurse directly reached out to me and said, my preceptor and it's not working right. So can you find a preceptor for me? So it's an eye opener. I do recall in your bio, you talked about how National Student Nurses Association is working towards a more equitable and progressive future for all pre-licensure nursing students across the United States. What does that future look like?
I think that future looks different depending on which one of our student members you ask. We represent such a wide variety of students across the country, approximately 20% of nursing students in the US right now. And all of them hold very different political beliefs, social beliefs, morals. But I think for the most part, it looks like finding better ways to support our patients in the clinical setting, finding better ways to advocate for ourselves, creating a healthier nursing profession as a whole. COVID kind of sent us to a place that we don't want to go back to. And NSNA has a really solid process in my mind for doing this. We conduct a House of Delegates at our annual convention each year, consisting of 400-ish student delegates from all across the United States. Any student can write and bring forth a policy resolution that is evidence-based about something they believe in, and then all of those delegates have the chance to vote on it. And then those are disseminated to organizations like the American Nurses Association, like the National League for Nursing, to the US government, and all of these bodies that do have the power to make these changes. So we give them a blueprint of what we want the future to look like. You can find all those on our website as well, but it kind of just gives students the opportunity to voice their concerns before they're in the place to actually be the ones making those changes. I have had the honor of being able to be at those tables in those discussions where change is happening, and it is just really inspiring and motivating to know how intently nurses will listen to nursing students and take our feedback and hear about what we want to say. Because I think in our minds, we're nursing students, they're not going to hear us. They're not going to want to listen to what we have to say. When I was at the White House and at the EPA and the Department of Health and Human Services, the respect that they give towards the student voice coming into the profession is something that really blew me away. And I am really excited to hopefully get more involved in that realm moving forward.
You're the future of nursing. And so you are going to really shape the profession. And so happy to hear that you want to be involved. Sometimes you want to ask yourself, why am I doing it? But deep inside, you know, who else will do it? It's us. We need to do it for our profession.
The political climate right now, yes, people are all over the place. But what I love is that I feel like people are getting more comfortable having those conversations. We're talking about health in a way that I feel like we haven't really had that conversation. So I think it's great that nurses are really being listened to, because after 2020, I think the world realized we are a big deal. The year of the nurses, and then we've got the nursing shortage. So if they don't give the students a voice, I don't know who else they could give a voice to.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of change ahead, whether good or bad, but I am hoping that nurses and nursing students continue to be heard throughout that and have their expertise held at face value and considered for the knowledge that we truly do have being so close to patients in the clinical setting.
What would be your advice or suggestion for students who want to be involved in the Student Nurses Association? And also, I do know that there are some schools who still do not have their Student Nurses Association.
There's all different levels of involvement, obviously. The National Student Nurses Association functions at the local, state, and national level. To start a chapter, all you have to do is go to the NSNA website, nsna.org. You can find information about forming a chapter. All you have to do is have 10 students who are interested, get memberships, and then we have a roadmap on our website from there. Some students just choose to get involved at the state level. They choose to attend our convention. Our next one is going to be April 9th through 13th in Seattle, Washington. We have about 2,000 to 3,000 nursing students that come to learn about all different specialties, learn about different areas they can work in. We have some really great plenary sessions, NCLEX review. It's kind of, in my mind, the first step to getting involved in professional associations as a nurse. It kind of is a really good primer for getting you involved early and kind of preparing you for how to conduct yourselves in those settings and really learn to consider yourself as a professional and how to develop into the future.
Well, Ethan, thank you so much for joining us. It's truly been a pleasure to have you on our episode of Med-Surg Moments. We wish you nothing but the best in your nursing career, and thank you for sharing with us the voice of nursing students across the country.
Thank you so much for having me.
We look forward to connecting with you on the next episode of Med-Surg Moments, the AMSN podcast.
In the meantime, we encourage you to subscribe to Med-Surg Moments wherever you listen to podcasts.
To reach us, use hashtag MedSurgMoments on your social posts.
Or send us an email at amsnpod@amsn.org. That's amsnpod@amsn.org.
We are all AMSN members, and if you love Med-Surg Moments, we invite you to become a member of AMSN. You can learn more at www.amsn.org.
Finally, the content within the Med-Surg Moments podcast represent the views, thoughts, and opinions of the co-hosts and may not necessarily reflect the views, thoughts, and opinions of the Academy of Medical Surgical Nurses.
Until next time, this is Eric,
Mary Tess,
Sam.
Kellye,
Marcella.
And Sydney. And always remember, Med-Surg Moments is a moment in our lives and a moment in our Med-Surg careers that makes a huge difference.